to Pixel Theater, everyone. We're back. It's 2021, the dawn of a new age, and the continuation of this ridiculous endeavor. I am your host, Nick Noel.
I'm Ron, stood on a cliff and screamed Jumanji to end 2020 Stratton. I think it worked. We made it.
You are the rock of this podcast.
I was thinking more of a Kevin Hart, but I'll take it.
Sure, either one.
Yeah.
And this is Pixel Theater, which is a podcast about video game movies, a much maligned subgenre, I guess, of film, and for the most part, rightly so. So today, on this here episode, we are going to be talking about Assassin's Creed.
What is this place?
This is your second chance.
What do you want from me?
Your past.
Which is a bonkers game and somehow an even weirder movie. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, bravo to them.
What I love about
it's always been.
Yeah, it seemed impossible, but they did it. And what I love about this movie is it's a testament to making the wrong choice each and every single time. So we're going to go into our main segment here. We'll go into the feature presentation. Woo! That's some nice intro segment music, Ron?
No, I love it.
So what did you think about this film? Charitably,
Well,
I guess we can call
it's a movie.
Yeah.
I think we have to rewind a little bit for me, just because this has always been a game that I'm aloof to. You know, like it was a neat.
You're
kind
playing
of,
coy, like it's like, hey, Ron, you want to come over and watch a movie? And you're like, oh, Assassin's Creed. I'm busy that day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can't. I'm washing my hair, but it's just it's never got its hooks into me. I totally recognize that it's got this incredible fan base, and there's a reason there's so many sequels. People love it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until like the last 3 iterations where it's kind of done an about face and become more of an action RPG, because I've been playing through Valhalla, and that feels more traditionally like a game I expected it to be. Whereas like the very first one, it was a neat kind of twist that, like, spoiler alert, you know, this is really the future and they're going back in time to control these ancestors. But I guess I respected what it was, but I couldn't get into it because the gameplay felt weird to me. Does that make sense? Did you play those early ones?
Yeah, I did. But I had kind of an opposite reaction because I liked the original ones, especially Assassin's Creed 2. And we'll dive into that in our arcade segment. But and then in some of the later ones, I found wanting, except for Black Flag, which is just fun. That's just fun. It's on
Black
pirate
Flag
ship.
is great.
It's great.
I mean, come on. So yeah, I didn't mean to get too ahead of it, but that just shows, like, I've always thought it's been a really weird game.
Yeah.
So bravo to them that the movie somehow was even weirder.
Yeah.
Like I knew what was happening, but like it was confusing, even though I got what was going on. Like, but it was still like, what is going on? Like, this is very odd. It's so amazing to me that there's so much incredible talent. Like, everyone in this is so good. I felt like it was shot really well. Like, it felt like it was a movie that, I don't want to say was trying. It felt like it wasn't looking down on the material. Like, this is going to be a real movie. But I just think every choice they made was the wrong one. I don't know. Like, I think the problem starts with the screenplay, because this MacGuffin didn't make any sense to me. How did this centuries-old thing, how is it going to end violence? Did I just sleep on that part? I missed. Okay.
In all fairness, I don't know if the games do a great job explaining this thing either. But
Yeah.
to your point, like, let's go over this list here. We've got Michael Fassbender, Brendan Gleeson, Michael Kenneth Williams, Jeremy Irons. That's just like
Oh,
some of the cast.
yeah, it's
Um,
like Hamlet or
yeah,
Macbeth. I mean, most of these guys have been in Macbeth. Like,
it's
it's a
yeah,
wonderful cast.
it's what's interesting is, speaking of Macbeth, it was directed by Justin Kurzel, who I don't know
Mm,
besides this movie, and then written by Michael Leslie, who seems to be like a collaborator with the director, and then these
okay.
two other guys, Bill College, I think, and Adam Cooper, who were our
Yeah.
screenwriting team. And you can see, like, if you look at their resume, you can see why they were in this movie, and you can't understand why Michael Leslie or Jason Kurzel is. Because the other big thing that those two did with Michael Fassbender is literally Macbeth. They did an
Yeah.
adaptation
Okay.
of Macbeth
Which is
together,
a good
and then did
adaptation.
this
That's
next, which is insane.
wow. I never made that connection. That's a good, yeah. It's a really interesting take on Macbeth. It's one of my favorite plays. So
Hmm.
it's weird to go from that to a video game movie.
Yeah,
but
and like, if you look at like what this movie's, I think, trying to do, you can see why they were maybe interested in it. Like, this very, like, it in some of the earlier shots, it's very like like ruminative and almost like uh individualistic kind of like character piece that Michael Fassbender is
yeah,
propositioning as the lead actor, and then just devolves into nonsense as you
I
can kind of
know.
see
So
the conflicting screenplays, because
I mean,
there's
I'll tell you,
yeah.
the writing was on the wall from the beginning because it starts with that where
Yeah.
he loses the finger and he joins the Brotherhood,
Hmm.
and I was like, wow, this is gonna be awesome. And then it goes like guitar twang, like "Yeah, Assassin's Creed," and right away I was like, oh, you just undid all the good faith I had in this. And
Yeah.
it was just kind of a funky transition to the rest of the movie, and I never got over that. Like what jumps out to me is funky transitions and funky editing,
Hmm.
because the movie always operates like it forgets that he's operating the animus. What was that thing called?
Yeah, the
I
Animus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the movie acts like you're going to forget he's in that, so it has to cut away to him in it. Now, granted, there's some cool cinematography, and I love the look of some of the things he's doing in that, but every beat couldn't breathe because it kept cutting to him
Yeah.
in the modern day. And I wish they would have just let that breathe a little more, like just
Uh,
go Matrix with it, like
that
you know.
is yeah, that is like um one of the things I noticed, like, when I was watching it, is that at no point is the audience allowed to enjoy any particular scene, because it's just like, as
Yeah,
soon as you start to get into like the historical action stuff, they cut back to the modern world, and you're like, oh wait, none of this is actually happening. It doesn't matter, it's already happened, who cares? Not all these people have
yeah.
been dead for 500 years, nothing matters.
Right.
And then anytime you start to get interested in Michael Fassbender's character, like, as like this convicted murderer, and who's got this lineage of assassins whose mother was murdered by his father, he gets stuck in a goofy machine and wanders around the fucking room all day. So it's just like, it's pointless.
Is there no back? Is there just no info on? Yeah, I just killed a pimp. Like that feels like that's brought up and arbitrarily dropped. Like I
Yeah.
killed a pimp. Oh, okay, and that's it. Like, why wasn't there more history on that? Like, what got him
Yeah.
to the trouble? I mean, I guess it's not that important, but
I
it
I
it felt
yeah.
odd to.
I didn't realize that that's what he did until I read the Wikipedia entry. Like, it is just it is so barely commented
Well,
on
no,
that I didn't even notice.
yeah, it's one line. He's talking to her in the lab, and I think she asked like, "What did you do?" He's like, "I killed a pimp."
Hmm.
Anyway, this machine, and it's like, wait, hold on, go back. Like,
It's just
if he
like,
just said, "I killed a man," it could have been mysterious. But pimp is very specific.
it's
I just
very
want to know.
specific, and it's a, I think, a signal to the audience. It's okay if you like this guy. He just killed a pimp. It's fine. Pimps
Yeah,
are
it's
bad
fine.
people and should be
Yeah,
murdered.
something tells me if they weren't trying to curtail this to be PG-13 cookie cutter for a wider audience, they would have been like, "I killed a child molester." Oh well, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's where they
Or
wanted to go with it. I
or
think.
even like, make it so that it's uncomfortable to like the guy, like,
Yeah.
I think they're trying to harken back to this idea that, the assassins are beyond law and beyond morality, that they exist in this nexus of making life and death decisions for everyone because they have this higher authority. And so trying to show that like he killed a bad person, and you can fill in the details of why he would, is supposed to like trace back to his lineage or something, but they in no way did that. And like, so probably there's a 3-hour cut of this movie that has his
Yeah.
whole like life before being sentenced to death, and who he murdered and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That more plays into it, but we don't get to see it.
I never once thought it was a bad movie though while watching it. I just
Mhm.
was like, oh no, this is a terrible script, and everyone's bringing their A game. And also I didn't quite care for the editing. It is I really hate what the Born Identity movies have done to action
Ugh,
films. Like it's
yeah.
taken us decades to recover. I don't need three different angles of the same sequence played out. I don't need fast cutting. Get these guys trained, choreographed really well, and
And
give me
yeah,
long takes and show it all. Like
and
that bugs
it's
me.
not even the Bourne movies. It's specifically Paul Greengrass, because the
Yeah,
first Bourne
yeah,
Identity, you can like see what's going on. They like cut to like
sure.
medium shots to establish the room, and then Paul Greengrass is like, no, only close-ups, fast cuts.
Only
We don't
close
need to
ups.
see shit. No, we don't have time.
Yeah,
Like,
throw the
and
cameraman out a window.
yeah, exactly. Everything handheld. Really?
Yeah.
Everything? No, I only want
So
close-ups of the gear shift. What? Okay.
this one walked the line, because there is some CG stuff and wonky
Hmm.
wire work, but at the same time, like the leap of faith, I never saw anything from this movie except for the making of, and a
Hmm.
guy really did that. He jumped like
Yeah.
60, 70 feet off of some scaffolding. And it's
It
like,
was
that's cool.
actually, I just saw it. It was 125 like
Oh
feet
my God.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
125, 135, something like that. Yeah.
that's
It's pretty
amazing.
crazy.
And,
Yeah.
and it leads credibility to the movie. Like it
Hmm.
looks good. It looks like a guy's really doing that, which is cool.
Yeah.
Nothing else makes sense in the movie, like with his doing those abilities. And it's just weird because it goes back to like this never-ending loop of like you translate the things that worked from the game to a real world scenario and it doesn't work, but then if you change too much then it's not the game anymore. So it's,
Yeah.
for a fan of the game, you probably got everything you wanted, but there's also like, why is he doing this and what
It's weird.
exactly is happening?
It's weird because like, we'll like I said, we'll talk about the games in a minute, but just in general, like the movie does what I was hoping the games would do, which is, they have this idea that you go through the animus, you actually pick up those skills, and so you become like a modern, assassin ability, that like with all those the fighting skills and physical skills. And so I thought that eventually the games were going to transition into a completely modern environment where you
That's
are
what I
now
always
like
thought they were going.
acting. And I was just like, okay, so we'll probably see like one of these, and then it'll do like a little bit later, the Italian Renaissance, and then maybe Victorian era, and then it'll go into the modern one, and then there'll be more and more modern stuff. And it went the opposite way of just like, fuck all the modern shit, nobody likes it, it's a
Yeah,
chore to get through, we're barely gonna talk about it, it's all just, swashbuckling and sword fights, like 99% of the time.
that's so weird. I
To
mean,
the
it's
point
just,
where it's like, why are you even having the modern stuff anymore? Like, let's just get rid of it.
I know it's strange that it's still pigeonholed as like the DNA of everything when they should have
Hmm.
just done a reboot and said, hey, you know what, like forget it, you're just going to be these assassins.
Yeah,
I
just
don't
these
know.
assassins throughout history, like whatever, it's
How
fine.
many games have there been? Like the first one I played
I
was
have
on
no
the
idea.
PSP to show how little like involvement I had, and it looked really good on the PSP. That's why I bought it. But
Hmm. I
and it
mean,
was a
it does.
multiplayer one. I remember being popular.
I need to look up exactly how many there've been. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like, if we were on like Valhalla was like the sixth, maybe like full game, and then there've been a bunch of like Assassin's Creed 2 kind of did what uh Grand Theft Auto 3 did, where they had like a bunch of like iterations of it, so they would have like similar characters take place during the similar time period. um
Ah,
so there was like Assassin's Creed 2, city of something. I don't remember, but
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
and then they moved on to Assassin's Creed 3, and we're like, oh, nobody likes this. Assassin's Creed 4. Like,
Yeah, boom, boom.
yeah.
I knew some of them came out being glitch crazy, like
Hmm.
disappearing faces, and but it really feels like there's this turn up because now they remind me of like Zelda or
Okay.
Skyrim,
Hmm.
to a degree. Like it's like Odyssey, I think the Egyptian one, and
Hmm.
then there was the Spartan one. Like those, the last three have felt like completely different games, but games I enjoy playing. But the plot device of the future seems like completely gone now,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
from what
Definitely.
I've seen.
Yeah. The last one. Well, we'll get into it later. Is there anything else
Yeah.
you wanted to say about this movie? Like, is there anything you've enjoyed about it, or
I
particularly?
mean, like overall, I enjoyed watching it. It was just the overthinking of this plot just inherently doesn't work,
Hmm.
because it's. I'd rather. I think you even touched on this when we talked off camera. Like, I think Jeremy Irons and his relationship with his daughter, like that dynamic of the movie is more interesting than anything happening in the past.
Yeah.
And I, I I just like seeing those guys chew the scenery, and I just think the plot device is something that has no information. It's just a metal apple that'll get rid of violence. I,
Hmm.
I I didn't understand how that would work. They're trying to do go Ark of the Covenant with it, and I needed more information than that. But I enjoyed watching it. It went by fast. There was nothing happening. I liked the camera work a lot. Like I was saying earlier, the editing is the only thing that bugged me, but the camera work and the performances and the lighting and the look of everything was
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah, I would say like there's just too many plot threads that don't get like interwoven enough. So there's the
Yeah,
like the concept of him being a murderer, the concept of his father killing him, and then he's a, understanding that he's part of the, this assassins group. There's
yeah,
the Templar facility that he's imprisoned in with all the other people. There's the background of the historical period that is kind of leading them towards this, MacGuffin, as you put it. And then there's
yeah,
the Jeremy Irons, Marion Cotillard, maybe, or Colitard.
yeah. I know her name. I
I'm
just
never gonna know.
butcher when I pronounce it, so
Um,
I'm gonna go yes.
Sorry, French ancestors. I have yet again disappointed you. And then the whole like plot of Jeremy Irons, I guess, like a rising through the Templar ranks or something, or take or like being able to like have the apple, I
Yeah,
guess,
that.
and do whatever he was going to do with it. And so that's all these things that like they explore barely. And then the idea, oh, sorry, the other part where the guy's becoming an actual assassin, being kind of like inhabited by his ancestor, becoming more and more
Yeah, that
aligned with
was
it. So like if you
a
took
couple of things like
three
that.
of
I was
those
like, oh, I guess
things,
that's
yeah,
yeah. Three of them would work.
three of them, and then just focused on them, that'd be great. But you tried to do all of it, and it doesn't work. And like I said, it comes
Yeah.
back to, I really think they couldn't reconcile the old script with what their vision was, and they didn't want to start over.
Mm,
So they ended up with this big mishmash.
fucking
Yeah. Like,
work.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the the original writers, like, they did stuff like, I think, Divergent, and like that YA book series adaptation, and then like
Mhm.
Exodus, like Gods and Kings or something like that. Like, so you can see why they were tapped to do this. Like, those movies very
Sure.
much in alignment of some of what Assassin's Creed is. And then all this overlay of like the quieter periods of Michael Fassbender's portrayal of this person as like an unhinged, kind of violent, brutish person, and then his translation to a more elegant, violent person, I guess,
Sure. Yeah.
is it feels like that came from the new team. Um, at least that'd be my guess, but couldn't really uh, square it with the other script. These are all assumptions I'm making.
No, but you've nailed it. I mean, it's got to be what's going on.
And I would say, unfortunately, in some respects, critics and audiences agreed, because this is now an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it only
Just.
made it made $240 million, but that's on a $125 million budget, so not
Mhm.
great. I think we've talked
Yeah.
about this
And
before, but it's something like you need doubling your budget means you break even, basically, with all the
yeah.
extra
Oh yeah.
expenses.
It's ridiculous now because the production of the movie is kind of a drop in the bucket. It's the like seriously, I bet you the advertising budget for this is probably $200 million.
It's a lot.
So
Yeah.
like they've got to make that back the first weekend, otherwise it's considered a failure.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's why like these, like if you look at like Justice League and all these, and like Suicide Squad and stuff like that, that made a lot of money, like 800,
yeah,
700,
in the
800 million dollars.
'90s, movies like Suicide Squad, those are be considered huge successes, but because things have to be made or broken on opening weekend, like they're all failures now. Like Hellboy was a complete financial disaster, but because it sold 1 million copies on DVD, everyone went, "Oh shit, let's make another one."
Yeah.
Like that market's gone. How do you do that now?
Yeah,
With streaming?
it's so weird. Like Hellboy 3 has been delayed so long that its business model has become obsolete. Like they can't now, at this point there's just no point in doing it, and they even tried to
Yeah.
reboot it, which is odd. Like they're like, "Hey, this we're all in agreement that this franchise only barely works and really only works with this team." Like, yeah, of course. It's like,
let's
so
start
anyway, let's
over.
reboot it.
Yeah.
Like this
We'll
thing that
piss
has
off the
never
comic
been
book
successful.
fans. We'll piss off the Guillermo fans. Like no one will be happy.
Yeah. Also, it'll be a bad movie. It'll just be bad. It'll make no sense. Oh goodness. Hellboy.
Mila Jovovich expected to carry it as a villain was probably not the strongest suit of that movie.
No, she is our greatest living action heroine, though. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounded sarcastic, but I kind of mean it.
You kind of mean.
Yeah.
60% effort.
Yeah. That might be more about the state of women in action movies than anything, but still.
Yeah.
So unnecessarily mean to Mila Jovovich.
I know. I love her. I just don't like the Resident Evil movies after having to endure so many of them.
Okay. Wrapping up, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go into the arcade?
No. I mean, what would you give it? How many leaps of faith, I guess, would you dive off a building for?
It's so hard because like I said, it's what I wished the games would done, but it was executed not well. So
yeah.
Can I say I'm going to give it 7, but I still don't think you need to watch it? Like that's probably just it's a deeply personal 7, which I know probably is not indicative of how I've talked about it, but
no, and it's funny because I'm harsher, but I'm going with a 7 as well, just for my personal viewing of it. I don't recommend you watch it.
Yeah.
But I think if you're a fan of the games, there's enough here that you might like. And I think it was a good movie, just the script was bad, and that's the spine of your film. Mm-hmm. So it's tough for me to say that. Like the story in it of itself is so poorly constructed, but there's so much wonderful talent putting it together. It's almost worth watching to be like, all right.
It's kind of like a professional wrestler who's in his late 30s. Like he looks great and he's doing all the performance and stuff, but he has chronic back problems and his back is just
the knees
up beyond
shot.
Like that spine is just needs a lot of attention and is just having problems.
He can't move the neck more like than this. Like he's messed up.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie is.
Yep. There we go.
But I'll tell you, as a cis man or whatever, like a hetero man, like Michael Fassbender is easy on the eyes, and I can appreciate. But the guy's a very talented actor, and it's funny because he's got some duds. But if I see he's in it, I'm like, oh, I got to see it.
I think that's part of like legitimately why I expect more of this movie, and I think also why I'm giving it a 7 is just Michael Fassbender is making you believe that this is a good movie, despite all the evidence.
Yeah,
when he wakes committed.
Up when he wakes up, like they tell him he's been, he didn't actually die, and he's getting out of the bed. Like the sincerity in his eyes is like, oh shit, that's why I watched Alien Covenant, is because this guy was in it. you know?
Exactly. Oh man, just garbage movies that were watchable because of Michael Fassbender.
It's weird because I still look at him and I think, oh, he picks great properties, but he's had some duds. You know,
Mhm.
the last few X-Men movies were not great, but he was always a highlight of them. So he always brings his A game, but just these projects don't deserve it. So I don't know.
uh, all right, so
Assassin's Creed
that's
was really interesting. It was very interesting watch. I don't think it was an awful movie. It's just very odd. It's such a misfire. You know,
yeah.
I think if things had been aligned a little more, it would have been great. But just what the hell's the apple of Eden? I don't understand. That-
That's
That's where they
that's
lost me.
that's basically Ron's tagline for the review. What the hell is the apple of Eden?
I don't
Um,
understand.
all right, so that's going to wrap up this segment. We're going to go into our next segment where we discuss our relationship to this game in the arcade. Okay,
That's my
so
arcade
Ron,
game.
Assassin's Creed, as we alluded to, just a huge number of games in a relatively short amount of time, I feel. Um,
It fell into that EA trap of who started this? I guess the Tony Hawk series. Definitely Call of Duty carries the flag where it's like every fiscal year we need another one.
mhm.
November needs a new Assassin's Creed for Christmas. We don't care if it's finished, just put it out. you know. Um, I mean, just in the original 360 alone, I think we got 4 or 5. I mean, it's probably been at least a good almost 2 dozen games in the series.
Yeah, I think what am I? I'm looking at
Because like one, two, three,
there's because
four,
there's
there's a
all these
multiplayer one.
yeah, there's all these ones and then there's like portable ones like iOS and Android games. So counting them up, I'll count them up. You keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, it was something where the job I was at, my buddy Neil was so into it. He was like, "This is gonna be," and seeing it in motion. Like, that was back when the 360 was a next gen system, and this was like this killer app. And I remember hearing there's like this mystery to it, so it got kind of spoiled for me that there was this future element to it.
Hmm.
But even then, I was still like, "Oh, this will be." I don't care. Like, I still want to play it. And it was just such a parking a semi truck early days of Resident Evil. Like, I don't know. I felt once removed from the controls. Like it was not fluid like fighting in that game to
Hmm.
me. And that's a rare criticism. I've never heard really anyone complain about that was into games. Um, so I don't know why my takeaway was that, but I just didn't think I just couldn't get into the gameplay. Lost me, like just
Yeah.
because my favorite part was I want to fight all these guys in a circle around me. Like,
Hmm.
did you ever play the game Mark of Cree?
No.
Oh, it's wonderful. It was a PlayStation 2 game. It looks like a Disney cartoon, like
Hmm.
like I guess it's got Disney animation, but it's gory and violent. It
Okay.
has this incredible combat system where you like kind of step into a ring and all the bad guys are surrounding you, and you would spin the right analog stick and you'd highlight everybody, and they would be a face button. So instead of like being surrounded by bad guys, you'd have square, triangle, and circle. And then as you kill them, you just spin the analog again, and you keep assigning those buttons to people. And you're just mashing buttons and doing these great combos. So anytime a game feels like that but doesn't have as smooth a gameplay interface, I'm lost
Hmm.
immediately. I'm just like, nah. And that was the thing. The game just lost me with that. And then
Yeah.
so my question for you is, because you were such a fan of the Hitman franchise and more adverse with it than I am,
Hmm.
uh, does Assassin's Creed at its core work as a game like that? Is it
So
all
no.
about the stealth and
So that's also like I'm realizing Hitman has colored my video game experience probably more than any other game, which I don't think is true for a lot of people. I don't think people have like such a abide for Hitman 2 Silent Assassin as I do. And how much that affects how they play other games. But yeah, I went into this thinking like, okay, so this is kind of like a historical Hitman. He's like an assassin, so you have and I saw the presentation that they did at EA, or when there was an EA. I don't remember exactly. It was their expo,
Mhm.
so they were doing some sort of game
Yeah.
expo. And they watch it, and the way they were explaining it was like, yeah, you like blend into the crowd and then you're picking and choosing how you're going to assassinate this person. And I mean, that's sort of true, but in the end, there's really only like one choice. You don't really have like the ability to like set it up differently. They don't give
Mm,
you any ranged weapons. Um,
mm,
in the first one, as far as I remember, maybe they do, but I don't think so. Um, and so you don't have as many options as they made it seem like, and it's really just about diving in, killing somebody, fighting your way out, jumping, doing the rooftop stuff. And so it's fun if you go into it knowing that that's what the game is. Um, but if you assume that it's going to allow you to do more plotty kind of or plotting and have more control over your environment, it's less fun, I guess.
mm,
And then with the second one, though, I mean, Assassin's Creed 2 is the one that I like the most.
mm,
And it's mainly because it's easier to get around than the first one. And they give you, at least for a lot of it, a base of operations. So, like, the thing
mm,
that, it's still not as much fun in terms of like, plotting and stuff like that. But you do get to like upgrade this big mansion, which is another thing I like in games. So kind of like I think my two most formative game experiences were Grand Theft Auto Vice City and Hitman 2, basically. So like
mm,
and
mm.
when you get into the Vice City where you're like building your empire and like buying all the businesses and like going around and like I loved that, and I was so bummed when they took that out basically of the other games where you're not really building an empire anymore.
That was such a step backwards because it
Hmm.
felt like that was the point of the because Grand Theft Auto has always been about becoming this kind of Godfather character in a
Hmm.
sense, and I like San Andreas kind of had its own gang warfare kind of thing, but it
Yeah.
wasn't the same. Like I really liked that aspect of it. Like I don't know, I maybe the next one I'll go back to it.
Hmm. And I guess like later on you could sort of buy a couple businesses, but it didn't feel the same. It wasn't like
Yeah,
getting an empire. It was more just like I invested in an auto shop. Like, oh great, that's
here it is.
that's such a compelling narrative. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, I've played several of them. I was counting it up. There are apparently 24
Wow.
like individual
Yes.
games, including
I
like
was gonna say two
portables
dozen
and
felt high, but that's also
no,
exactly how many there are.
yeah, exactly. And they, after Black Flag, they just stopped numbering them. So I guess
Mm,
they're probably it doesn't seem like they're going in chronological order anymore. Like in the original ones, there was like each one was like a couple hundred years later, or
sure.
like a little bit later. Um, and then with the newer ones, they're just all over the place. They're just kind of doing whatever they want. Like I think the Valhalla one, that's the one you're playing now, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that like the 1800s, or when is that? No, that's not
Oh
right.
no, that's like
That's not right.
1100s, maybe I
Why was
think.
I thinking that? I think it's because you go to Europe, and so it's like, well, obviously that must be the 1800s,
Yeah, they've got steamboats and
but
top hats with the Vikings. But
and so I
where
mean,
was I
is it
going to go with that?
Valhalla 1100s? Um,
Yeah, well, no, just like
so you've played
it's
the later ones, so because I stopped after 4.
yeah, and I've barely played the other two. So I think the game won me back with Black Flag
Hmm.
because it was like, oh, I love because I like Sid Meier's Pirates. I played that like a year ago.
Oh
Like
man, yeah, I played
that's
that so
that's
much.
yeah, like I always go back to it because that was such a like this is great kind of like you were a pirate in those. So that's why my like my I've talked about it before, but my go-to I play every week is Sea of Thieves. I mean, Sea of
Hmm.
Thieves is my favorite game right now because all it is be a pirate. And Black Flag had such a beautiful look to it. I mean, I'm from the Caribbean, so you got islands and that blue water and a boat. I'm in, and it felt really different. It really felt like that was the beginning of like we're gonna lean more into the action RPG style of gameplay, which they really became action RPGs with Odyssey
So
onward.
so I'm not good at knowing what terms are. what do you
Okay.
think defines an action RPG? Like, do you mean like the ability
Action
to upgrade your
RPG,
character, or how do you mean?
upgrade your character, level up, gain experience.
Okay.
Like starting off with like a dagger and like a piece of wood as your shield, and leveling up, becoming more powerful,
Hmm.
and having skill trees. Learning archery and like leveling up and mastering that and branching out.
Yeah.
Those are and maybe the game can always be considered that, but I don't remember there being a leveling up aspect to the early games as far as skill
No,
trees and whatnot.
my
It really just felt
it's
more
been
like
a
I'm gonna stab that guy.
it's been a while, but I think mainly the only leveling they did was you would get more weapons, and then narratively, like, you could get better swords and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
narratively they would give you would unlock like blow darts and things like that, or yeah,
Okay.
blowgun and things like that eventually, that you could use, but they weren't it wasn't like you were building towards that skill, you know.
Yeah. And these later ones, like, I really are like, like Valhalla. It's like you can unlock two-handed weapons, and you become
Hmm.
more proficient with using two-handed or axes and swords and whatnot. And that's
Okay.
my cup of tea. I love just getting into the nuts and bolts. Like, oh, I've got a level 14 with my archery skill, and like I'm happy as hell when I can play a game that way. But it's interesting to see it kind of turn more into that, and like, the assassin part of being an assassin kind of took a back seat in those
Hmm.
games. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I definitely think the original ones were much more like I'm not like, wasn't an RPG. It was very much like kind of an
Yeah, I was trying to
adventure.
pigeonhole it, but it doesn't
Yeah.
feel. It feel like it was its own thing.
There's there's a certain, like, whatever the style is where you get like free run, was kind of like that, because like you could run everywhere, you could, just hold
yeah,
down the trigger
like
button and
Prince
go
of
over the buildings and stuff.
Persia, and
Yeah, it was much more like that. Yeah.
yeah, like if I was still at a video store and I had this, I'd go like action adventure game. That's where
Hmm.
Assassin's Creed goes, and it would not put it in stealth. Like, Splinter Cell, I'd put in stealth, even though that can be a very action game.
Hmm.
You're supposed to play it very stealthy. Whereas Assassin's Creed, I don't think that was ever really.
I mean,
I mean, it was the
you
intention, but
could
not really.
you
Yeah,
could I just always found it to be too hard to do it that way. Like, it was always
yeah,
so hard, I think, to stealthfully assassinate someone, because like the game is to me, the game is set up to jump on somebody and stab them through the face with your wrist blade. Like, that's
of
the action
course.
the game wants you to take all the time.
Yeah, every single
Um
time.
like
Don't
to the
deviate.
to the point where it was in the first one, I think, especially, it was always weird when they'd have those like death side confession moments, where the idea is they're having like a conversation as they're dying. It's just like, you might as well give me the information, you're dead anyway. Where it's just like, nobody has, there's no time, like, you just stabbed him in the middle of a crowd. We can't have a five
Yeah,
minute conversation, you're about to be murdered.
yeah. So silly. It's my favorite part of like Japanese samurai films, like the Lone Wolf and Cub series,
Hmm.
because they'll have a duel, and it'll slice through the guy, and like his next opening, it's just spritzing blood, and it'll have an entire monologue about I
Of
grew up
course.
in a small village, and it's so great. It's like, buddy, you're dead.
Oh,
You got to hurry it up.
that is the carotid artery, man. You got like five
Yeah,
seconds. You better say goodbye to your wife or something.
yeah. You have
Um,
filled the pool already.
like, you know how fast your heart pumps blood, man? That is just shooting at you. Um,
So ridiculous.
uh, so, I have noticed that, I think, this game we talk about a lot, but Ghosts of Tsushima,
Hmm.
really seem to have taken something from the Assassin's Creed games, um, or at least been inspired by in some respect, because you can see it in like the way that they've got a skill tree now, um,
Hmm.
and that builds up, and the sword fighting, I think they really nailed. Like, the Assassin's Creed sword fighting always did feel clunky to me, um,
Yeah,
and in this one, like, they've really like built it so that you can sword fight in different styles, and the
yeah.
controls are easy.
I
It's like
loved
a lot of choice
loved the
without having
gameplay
to
in that.
be an expert at it, I guess.
Yeah,
But
the combat in that, I love feeling like I could button mash and do a lot of damage, but the
Mhm.
game is designed to not let you do that. And that one, you've got that ability to just go ham if you wanted to, but you'll die. Like you've got to read that guy, you've got to parry and move in a certain way. Like the combat
So,
in that is just so fun.
since you've played a little bit the early Assassin's game and Ghost of Tsushima and Valhalla, how would you say the combat system works in the latest Assassin's Creed by comparison?
Valhalla's more like that, but not as adept. I think Ghost is better.
Hmm.
But Valhalla really does remind me of like Skyrim feels weird, but it's got that kind of feel to the combat of like I'm playing a role playing game that just happens to be really good at like the action. But like I don't know, like it's fun to run into a village and like slide in and take out an archer and like to take over a town and fight all the bad guys. This feels really good.
Hmm.
But I never feel like the AI is really intelligent. Whereas the same scenario will play out in Ghost, and it's like, okay, I got to like really work on this guy, or like when you come into a town and you could take on the armored guy and surprise him, and I forget what it is, but there's a fun gameplay mechanic to that, right? Where like if you watch him train, you'll learn, and then you can
Yeah,
take him out. Yeah, so there's little things like that that the
there's
nuances are wonderful.
yeah. I mean, there is this thing where I think you learn a little bit. Like what you do is you learn stances, and which is a very early important part of the game
Yeah,
by either killing the commanders or observing them basically, and then
yeah.
you get basically get the same thing. So it's
Yeah.
kind of
I know
interesting.
that if you observe and then kill them, you can stack it. So
Hmm.
like whereas you get two or two, you
Oh,
get
I should have
four if you
done
did
that.
it. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
wasted a
it's
lot of time
cool.
then.
Yeah. That was the way to level up quick. And Assassin's Valhalla's is fun because I love Mordruna. I love the show Vikings. So I feel more like, oh, I'm getting enjoyment out of this because it's doing the North mythology so well. Aesthetically, it's very pleasing. But, I laugh because it's I got it for the PS5. There's our next gen like 4K. These are the next best graphics, and I'm looking at it and like 2-year-old Sea of Thieves water is the best I've ever seen in a game. So the water of this doesn't look as good to that, and there's nothing really next gen gamey about it, which is kind of a
Hmm.
bummer. But it felt, if you want to have a big beard and a fur coat, run around with an axe, it's great at letting you roleplay that. But I would always choose Ghost of Tsushima. Just like every check mark, it's a better game.
Did did you play the Norse God of War one?
Yes, yeah,
How do I mean, just I guess because it's similar, it's about Vikings.
yeah.
How do those compare?
It's
I guess they're
different. It's
mainly the
way more
combat system.
action.
Yeah.
The combat system is crazy. That one just like the cameras, right? That was the most impressive PS4 game. Like you talk about the PS5 coming out, and there's some games I really like. Demon Souls looks incredible, but when God of War came out, that could have been a PS5 game. Like that looked like
Hmm.
nothing I'd ever seen. That little iteration of like Detroit to Human, God of War, Spider Man, all felt
Yeah.
like next level PS4 games. So when God of War starts, he's chopping a tree and it's like the main menu, and you hit X and it keeps going, and it's like, oh shit, this is gameplay. you know so and it's
Yeah.
the first couple of hours that are really Norse, and then it gets more into the elements of God of War because it's like really fantastical shit starts happening. You're
Hmm.
underground, and it's always about like your throwing axe. I felt like Thor from Marvel more than anything. You got this big badass axe and you throw it and have it come back to you. And but that one really is a lot of this butt mashing because there is they like to step up, like you can only use this move on this guy and he'll do this, but really that was just going in and going full ham and wrecking shit, and it's fun, but it just looks really pretty, and it's just the spectacle on display. You got these big monsters, and
Hmm.
but it's almost a totally different experience, I would
Yeah.
think.
I would imagine so. I was just
Yeah.
curious. Okay, so that's gonna wrap up this segment again, and we are gonna go into our next one, which is our room for improvement, where we talk about how could this movie have been better. Whew, man, I do you think anyone has talked about Assassin's Creed the amount that we have?
Not even the writers.
No, I mean clearly, clearly.
Yeah.
Um,
That's my room for improvement, man. Like, you've got so many cooks in the kitchen. Like, if it had just been
mhm,
one unified vision, I mean, the game already is a writing challenge because it's tying together all these elements that cinematically don't really work. This needed to be a TV show. If this had
mhm.
been 10 episodes of something on HBO Max, it would be a lot more digestible, I think.
I think if
Give me
you,
time to
yeah,
spend with the characters and
yeah. I think if you took like a Westworld approach to this thing,
perfect.
like
That's
that
great. That's
same kind
exactly
of
what this would
tone
be.
would be like, because it's really exploring the, it's supposed to be exploring the concept of free will, exploring, if humanity would be better served under, a benevolent dictator, or,
Yeah.
let it have its freedom to be violent and to screw up, and which is more appropriate. And then also the concept of your own identity as you are subsumed by a more powerful and more noble, in some respects, at least better, more physically interesting character, in your ancestor. How much do you become that would be interesting. And I think they wanted to talk about that in this movie, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it shows that
Yeah.
there's like they set it up and they just don't hit the wiffle ball at all. Yeah, damn it. It's like I want this to be a TV show, but Westworld, season 1 and season 3 kind of already did that. What this the point of this would be. But yeah, I don't know. And like I don't just give me a return to well choreographed wide angle fight scenes. Like
Mhm.
just the editing in this was so sporadic. Like it felt like no one looked like they didn't know what they're doing. It's not Liam Neeson needing 23 cuts to get over a fence. Like it really felt like everyone looked like they knew what they were doing. I just don't think the editing served the movie well at
Mhm.
all. So I would change that. But boy, it's so close. Like I said during the review, there's not much that had to be changed. I wouldn't recast it. I wouldn't change the director. I wouldn't change anything about the look and feel of it. I just needed a stronger script. Like I just
Yeah.
think that it was too like you nailed it. Like if they picked three elements and honed those, it would have really worked. But they I felt like there's a checklist that the game company said they had to include. I was like, oh
Mhm.
fuck, all right, I don't know how we're gonna make this all work, but um
I
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know.
I I think you're like, yeah, like we've talked about, really honing it down, like we've said. But I wish they picked a lane really more
Mhm.
than anything. Like, if you want to have these historical elements, have that be most of the movie. If you
Yeah,
don't, really don't show the plot of that. Like, or have it end at some point sooner than when it did end. Like, so focus on
yeah.
that, and then to go into, like, the him learning the animus stuff should have been like the first third, and then the second third is him the other two-thirds are him destroying the Templars. Like, that would have been a stronger movie of like he
Hmm.
learns, and you can imagine it, similar to um uh, I this isn't great, but like becoming obsessed, kind of like in the way that Ex Machina like had this kind of like uh very unsettling and obsessive vibe throughout the entire movie. Like,
Yeah. Oh
subsume that, where
yeah.
he becomes obsessed with like taking over this character, and becomes like addicted to the animus, and
And it becomes yeah,
like a
that would have been
different
great.
person. And that's like, and then him breaking free from that is the, end of act one, basically.
Yeah.
And then they've got, they've have a monster that they created, then you've got that to deal with. So that would have been really, I think, interesting, but they like stretched everything out and put it in weird places, so
Hmm.
that by the
Hmm.
time the movie started, it was almost over,
Yeah, yeah.
and like
Like
everything
the
felt
movie ends
rushed.
with like, oh, here's where we want to be
Yeah.
earlier. Like,
Yeah.
I guess you're over now. And it's just that cocky, like, well, we're obviously gonna have three more. And it's like, don't make your movies that way. Don't
No.
stop it. I didn't
You
even
can
think, did this have an
always,
after
yeah.
credits? I didn't wait for it.
I never wait for it at this. I just don't, like, unless I'm like super invested in the movie, I never assume that there's an
It's
after
funny because I was
credits.
gonna rent this for $3.99 on Vudu, but it was $4.99 to buy the 4K. So I just bought it. So I own this now.
Oh, great! What a
Yeah.
cinematic triumph. Um, so yeah, like pick it, like, or the other thing is like I was really hoping that it was gonna be like the game and be mostly, you know, sword and sandal, like, or swashbuckling kind of
Yeah, like
adventure,
I
historical
was expecting
fantasy, that kind of stuff.
I was expecting it to be more like Tron. Like, like here, like, oh, we're gonna put you in this system and like plug you
Yeah.
in, and then the whole movie he's in the past and he comes back. But the dancing back and forth and rapid darting was weird. Especially since
Hmm.
they never let a fight scene breathe, like I complained about earlier. Like he's like every move he makes, it shows him doing it in the real world. And it was
Yeah,
kind of neat the
yeah,
first two times he did it, but stop.
I and I have a theory about why they did that. And so they changed the animus because they didn't want the movie to feel like The Matrix, where you plug in
Oh,
and go
totally.
into the computer or whatever. So they were like,
Yeah.
no, it's got to be dynamic. It's got to be them moving around this room. Um, and like, okay, uh, but because you had this whole set piece built, now you have to show the set piece. And
Over
so
and over
since
and
you're
over again.
over and over and over again, so now that you have to show the set piece, you get that disconnect of like, of again,
Mhm.
like getting really into, oh my God, who's going to live? Are they going to make it through? And then like cutting back to Michael Fassbender alone in a room. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter because they've been dead for so
Yeah.
long. Who cares? Uh,
Yeah.
so
Just fundamentally flawed, stuff like that. It's
yeah,
like it's so embedded in it. It's like, it's a totally different movie if you take all that stuff out. But
we're to the point where like it probably would have people would have felt that it was a much more derivative movie if they'd even like just had it be where he's in the bed and he gets plugged in. But it
yeah,
probably would
no,
have been
yeah.
a more enjoyable movie to watch. It's so weird how
Hmm.
that like little element can just change how you view the movie and then
Oh,
really fucks up
totally.
what the movie's trying to do.
Absolutely, man. I agree completely. It's a shame. It's a shame because there was a cool movie here, and
Mhm.
there's wonderful performances, but they never really got the right delivery. I think a
Yeah.
TV show would have made it cool.
So I don't know, it would be interesting to, this is such a big franchise. I would be shocked if they didn't try and do something else with it again, especially in the area
Yeah.
of everybody has a TV, everything has a streaming service and everybody needs people to
You know
get
what
their
I
streaming
find
service.
surprising? I'm surprised that like PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, instead of going to Netflix with these things like they are, like I forget what the plan is for Halo, but like the Halo show
Hmm.
you get on Xbox Live, the Assassin's Creed show you get on the PlayStation Network or whatever.
I
Even I know
Yeah,
it's multi-platform, but like it's weird that the
yeah.
networks themselves aren't trying to create that content.
I remember the PlayStation Network tried to do a show. They did an adaptation of Powers, which is the comic.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
like I never got a chance to watch it because I didn't have a PlayStation. Um,
yeah.
but it seemed like they didn't give it enough money, and like it just kind of uh, fell by the wayside because nobody watched it because it looked like shit or something. So
It's weird because that like where we're at now is the perfect time for stuff like that. Because Xbox
mhm.
like had a game show 15 years ago. Do you remember that? One versus 100?
No.
Like we used to like it was once a week or maybe twice a month, but you would sign on to your Xbox at like 9 p.m. and
Hmm.
you would play with 100 other people. It was a game show and you won real prizes. Like you get real cash, win like a stereo or a television. And it was so cool. Like I was terrible at it. I always like got kicked out right away. But with things like HQ right now, like I'm surprised there's not like a big primetime event synchronized trivia show on these systems, or like something like Powers, but with the budget to make it shine like a Netflix show or something.
Yeah, for like how much fucking money Sony and Microsoft have, you think they could just like do
Yeah,
something with. It's the same with like Apple is just setting money on fire for Apple TV and it doesn't matter. They're just like, yeah,
they
whatever.
don't care.
Let's have Jennifer Aniston be in a show that nobody cares about and we'll like do that
Yeah,
forever. Whatever. You want
here, let me put you on hold.
yeah, sure.
All right, we just made $3 billion.
Yeah, there we go.
Like
Sorry.
like it takes
What do you need for the show? 200 million? Sure, who cares? Like I'll make that
whatever.
tomorrow. It's fine.
Is
We're
that for
having
catering?
iPhone 11's coming out. We're going to make $1 trillion. Nothing matters. Um, oh goodness, we don't pay taxes anymore, so it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Yeah. You love our empty store in Ireland.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, I think we've talked this movie to death. I think we can put this one in our in the record books or whatever. We need to, we don't
Yeah.
have a what happens to a put it in the can? What does a movie do? Like, what could be a theater thing that we can wrap up with? This is not the time to have this conversation, but
Yeah, but
live as we're doing the show. How do we end things? We should figure that out 33 episodes in.
Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. Okay, everybody.
Whatever.
So we're going to go into our final segment here where Ron and I just kind of talk about whatever. We're going to chill out in the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
How are you, friend?
I'm all right overall, I think. Trying to think of like what I've been doing. I have a habit, as we've brought up on the show before, of waiting for like 5 to 10 years before I play a game because I want it to be, $15 instead of $70.
Understandable.
So I just bought Just Cause 3.
Oh, nice.
On Dane's recommendation, and I've been playing that. And, I can see how some people are saying it's like repetitive and whatever, but fuck, it's just fun and like low stress because it's so hard to die. You can do anything immediately. Like you're automatically like given really easy access to like helicopters and boats and like rocket launchers, and like it doesn't matter. You don't need to upgrade anything to kill everybody and to destroy everything. So just like the low stress of like,
it's great.
Yeah. And you just go around and you blow up entire, communication systems, and it's just, I don't know, it's just fun and stupid, and I've been enjoying that as a kind of reprieve from the meditations on life and death that Red Dead Redemption and Ghost of Tsushima were providing me with.
Seriously, those are heavy games.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that's like, oh, good, I'm glad you're playing those, but oof.
Yeah, it's just like, oh god, oh man, what does it even mean to be alive? And Just Cause is like, woohoo, blow shit up, wow, yeah. Surf on the top of the fucking car, like dive bomb the fucking water tower. Nothing matters. Who cares?
You ever take a grappling hook to a plane, bro? Yeah. Drink that Mountain Dew. So good. I need games to be like that right now. Yeah. I just have I play zombies on Call of Duty and like old school shit. I just love my Super Nintendo. The games were just it's just funny to me to strive for video game movie adaptations right now, because like, making Metal Gear Solid, which I'm sure will be cool, or at least we're going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But it's based on such a cinematic element. Last of Us being adapted is like, these were already movies that just happen to be games you played, Mm-hmm. Give me just a big fat plumber jumping on turtles. Like that's just my peanut butter and jelly, man.
I mean, speaking of like I tried to play Death Stranding. I gave it a shot. And like I was playing for an hour and hadn't actually played anything. Like I did 10 minutes of the first mission, and then it was 45 minutes of just, you're the president's son. The president's dead. Oh, here's a monster that's attacking you. Oh, you're dead now. Oh, you're back to life. Let's go talk to the Secretary of Defense now. Oh, here you go, your next mission. And I was like, what the fuck is even happening? Like, yeah. So I know it's some people's favorite fucking thing in the universe, but I just can't get on board. And then like that, I know Kojima, like part of his thing is commenting on video games themselves and like putting in weird mechanics to show that video games are stupid. And like, why are you
I
playing
love
them?
him for it. Yeah.
So like, but still, like, you still have to play it. And when it's like, a big mechanic is adjusting your backpack and making sure that you're able to walk, balanced. And I'm just like, man, I have enough time walking correctly in my life. I don't need to do it
Right.
in this
I don't need
game.
my game to do it for me. Have I talked about the Japanese job simulator games I used to play on the Dreamcast?
No, I don't think so. What could that possibly
Okay.
be?
So I got into this habit when the Dreamcast started to kind of teeter and like was not the writing was on the wall. It was not
Mhm.
supported anymore. I forget, my buddy helped me out with it. I don't know if it was like a CD you spun, but you could like kind of boot it in a way where you could play imported games.
Mhm.
And it was for God, I was like 19. It was so I could pay. I would go to the grocery store, get a COD, like a money order, and I'd pay the UPS guy for these Japanese games. So I would just buy whatever looked interesting. So it got like they did a cool HD port of a Dino Crisis or whatnot. And my buddy Matt was telling me about these games. So there's like a bus driving game. There's like a salary man working in a cubicle kind of environment. But I got this bus driving game, and like you were a bus driver. Like, so it was so weird.
I would
It
hope
was
so.
very serious. Well, but it was like if you missed a stop or if you like broke the speed limit, the game was over.
Oh wow!
Like you had
It's
to
like,
meticulously go through your shift.
you
and
have brought
begrudgingly
shame
pick
to
up
the
people.
Tokyo Transit system. You must immediately
Yeah.
quit.
And I just thought, like, wow, these guys probably worked a 9 or 10 hour math intensive paperwork day. I'm going to come home and unwind by pretending I'm a bus driver. Like, it was such a weird game.
Yes,
But
the
I
quiet
dug it.
dignity of the Japanese bus driver. How it like his boss isn't constantly demeaning him in front of his subordinates.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just
goodness.
laughed because I'm next to the Rosa Parks station. I'd like to see the Detroit version of that. That'd be a it's very different type of chill.
Oh goodness.
So yeah, that's neat.
So you said what else have you been playing? Anything or watching?
Well, I picked up Hitman 3.
Okay.
I haven't played it yet because I'm just already my PlayStation 5, like with the hard drive it shipped with. I bought Spider-Man, Call of Duty, like 2 of the games, and my hard drive is full already. Because they shipped it with the pretense of like, oh, 1 terabyte, you've got a lot. That is not a lot of storage anymore when these games are 200 or 300 gigs a pop.
Yeah, geez.
But I'm looking forward. I'm going to probably start that tonight or tomorrow. And then playing a little bit of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I've been watching stuff. I just watched Promising Young Woman, which was really good. Brutal movie though, but very like in the mold of like I think of Kill Bill, just in the sense that there's like a numbered kind of checklist system to it. But it's really upsetting and powerful without it being like men are bad or she's the lead and she's an empowered feminist. It was just a really raw look at like how fucked up I don't know, the whole world, like the whole world is essentially, but it's just like the traumatic events these women go through in this movie. And how like it's all based on this quote about, well, this is a promising young man. He didn't mean to rape her 3 times. Look, he could be and it's just this horrible like credence or past that these guys would get because they're in college and young. And, I don't know. It's just an upsetting, triggering movie. I think if anyone's got horrible things in their past, like I think this movie would be not a good idea to judge that up. But at the same time, it was a really cool movie. It was a really well made movie. I love the lead actress in it, and it surprised me. I thought it was really cool. And then I watched Sputnik, which is a good Russian horror film that I really dug a lot. I highly recommend watching that because it was really creepy. It was cool. I put it on without watching a trailer. I saw a buddy on Facebook say that he liked it, so I just started it, went in blind, and I'm really glad I did. I recommend not looking up anything on it and just going in blind. And that's about it. There's a couple of shows I've been wanting to watch, but yeah, next for me is starting up Hitman 3. Like, despite, I think I've even talked about during our Hitman movies, like I haven't really gotten into the games, and the chapter nature of 1 and 2 are of these more recent ones was like, what is happening? But this one really feels, what I like is I think if I played through the last 2, it becomes cohesive. Like Hitman 3 makes them all one big game now, which is kind of
Okay.
neat. So it would do something with your game save in a way that I was like, oh, when I heard that, I was like, this is really cool. But I heard they just knocked it out of the park with level design. Like the maps, and every single map is so unique and so incredible. Like the first one, you parachute into that giant tower, and
That's exciting. Yeah.
That Tom Cruise climbed.
Yeah, in Dubai, right?
Dubai. Thank you, Jesus. I was going to say, get that one, that movie. But yeah, you parachute into that, and you climb up and down it, and it looks gorgeous. So all the ray tracing, and looks really cool. So I'm gonna fire that up. It looks exciting.
I haven't played Hitman 2 yet. I'm gonna hopefully do it soon. The only thing I heard about Hitman 3 is I saw people have been speed running one level in under 10 seconds, because if you go into the lobby, there's a brief time where the two targets are visible and within range of your pistol. So if you time it, just go in real quick and go bang and then leave, you can complete the level in, like I said, 10 seconds.
That's incredible. I love that.
So
I like watching.
It's funny.
I think IGN does developers watch speedrunners, and it's so funny to see them go they're speechless. So how did they break our game? How did they know that you could do this? Like some maniac in Doom Eternal, if I fire my gun at my left knee in the corner, I'll glitch through and fly up through the elevator.
The amount of time.
It's impressive.
Just the amount of time you have to spend just trying to break the game in order to do that stuff just seems so exhausting. I don't understand. Oh well. Yeah. The only other thing I'll mention, just because it was fresh in my head, is I just finished the Queen's Gambit, which was a little bit.
I've been wanting to start that. Yeah,
and I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun for a chess game, and it is very much about the concentration and intensity between the people playing chess. It very rarely matters if anything about chess. They have these intense matches, but it's so much about just the emotions going into the players and how they're feeling about it, and what it would mean for their careers to win or lose. So they do a lot of building up in order for the chess match to not be boring, basically. So it's interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I'll have to give that a watch.
Yeah. All right. Okay, everyone, you've done it. You've spent some time with us. We hope it's been enjoyable. At the very least, it's been informative about Assassin's Creed. That was somehow a terrible movie that also gets a high enough rating, but also we don't recommend watching. Highest rating in a while. I think.
Yeah.
Based solely, I think it got an extra 2 points because of Michael Fassbender. Basically, it's the Fassbender bump. So, like I said, thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We are on all of your favorite podcasting applications. You can email us, but it's probably best to get us on Facebook or Twitter. Find us there, follow us there, let us know what you think. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Technical difficulties. Production.